Welcome to the This Lyric, That Truth podcast. And I'm so excited about, my guest today, Tommy Dillon.
Hi, Ceci.
I have something for you.
For me?
Yep. I got to dig through my purse.
Oh, boy.
Okay. My daughter got married a couple weeks ago, and she was looking for a really specific picture. And do you remember back in the day when you used to print out pictures?
Yeah.
So I was going through these Rubbermaid bins full of old photos, and check out what I found. You can point them. You can show the camera.
Oh, my goodness.
Check
Wow.
that out.
Oh, my. This one's a really young one of you. So Cece's wearing suspenders. Overalls. Sorry, overalls. Yeah. You're wearing overalls. That's a great look. Circa 1990 something.
Yep.
This is a clock that you're holding. It says that it's like 6:05. Is this because it's in the morning or is this at night? Do you have a clue? And I've got a Michigan State sign because I'm a Michigan State fan. I have really short hair. That's an awful picture. This needs to be burned. Not because of you. Oh, well, I wish that was the end, because this is the picture that you, the very first time you ever came to a broadcast and said, "Hi, I'm Ceci, and I want a job," basically.
Yeah. That was 26 years ago.
Wow.
In just a couple of months, I had listened to, it was JQ at the time, and I had graduated from college, and I had been praying about what kind of career the Lord wanted me to have. I had so much bold faith back then. I needed a fresh idea. And this idea popped into my mind about radio. And so you were on the morning show by yourself. You had done a show with Brian. It was Tommy and Brian show.
Yeah.
And he had left to do a different job. And so I called you up and I was like, how do you get into radio? And you said, well, you have to bring in a tape. And I didn't know what that was.
Nope.
And so what I did.
There's people that still don't know what that is.
Yeah, a tape. A tape is a collection of your best work.
Yeah.
From your.
It's like a portfolio, but it's audio.
From your previous jobs in radio, exactly. And so I had gone to Hope College and I rented a tape recording machine. And it was this box that had a microphone attached to it. And so you could record yourself singing in it or whatever. I rented one of those. I think it was from the library. And I went around to my different professors about why I would be good in radio. And that is the tape that I brought you.
Yeah.
While you were in the morning show.
And I remember that.
And you were broadcasting live later that day at a car wash or a gas station.
Gas station, I think.
And so I showed up with a sandwich board that said, honk if you want, Ceci in the mornings.
Yeah. And this is the picture to prove it.
Yeah.
If anyone ever wondered, look at that. That's amazing.
I know.
Do you remember how much that equipment cost you to rent by any chance?
$20 maybe.
And didn't you go to school there? They should have given that to you for free.
I know.
A per diem thing.
I'm telling you this now. This podcast is not about me, and I don't want it to be about me. But that is I would say in my whole life of faith, was the closest time I ever came that close to hearing the audible voice of God. I specifically prayed for direction. I feel like it randomly popped into my mind. And now 26 years later, here we are. Of course, you're still doing the morning show. And now I'm on the afternoon show. But tell me about your journey into radio and how you got here.
Well, I'll just piggyback on what you said, because if you think about it, if I said on the air, hey, if you want to apply for a job, nobody else reached out. So that's kind of just crazy to think about, that for as many things as we say to as many thousands of people that are listening every day. And when you say, maybe that word is for you today, and just 74,999 people were like, yeah, that's good for someone else, but you were the one. That's kind of crazy. You probably don't think about that a lot, but so hearing the audible voice of God, that's crazy.
All these many years later, and I don't want to give people the wrong impression that every day is like the most fun day ever. It's still a job. There's a lot of work required. There can be technological stress that comes along with a job like this. But it has been the most fulfilling experience. And I know that when they interview people at the end of their life, one of people's biggest regrets is that they didn't live a life of meaning and they wish they had done work that was more meaningful or made an impact. And I really do believe, Tommy, that when I get to the end of my life, I won't feel that way because I feel like Christian radio broadcasting means so much to so many people because it's encouragement in a lyric that they're going to hear in a song. It's going to be hope when they get devastating news. It's connection if you're feeling lonely. And so I really do feel like I'll be able to get to the end of my life and be like, I was a part of something that was so much bigger than me.
Mm-hmm. I also think probably a lot of people would look back and go, I wish I would have taken more chances or stepped out and taken another risk.
Yeah.
I think that's, you can look back in the course of a year or even a week and say, maybe I should have gone to that, whatever, fill in the blank. Maybe I should have done blank, but you did it. You did. You took the chance.
Maybe you put yourself out there with an opportunity to be rejected or to be told no. But what if they say yes?
Right.
What if you land a job on a morning show 4 days later with no experience at all? And I was horrible when I first started. I remember I used to get so sick to my stomach.
You weren't horrible.
Well, I had a degree of like a natural ability to communicate, but you really taught me everything that I know to this day about broadcasting because you taught me in real time, on the air, off the air, the meetings we would have, in your office about communicating better. And so I just want to say thank you for that because you taught me a huge skill.
Well, thank you. But you are willing to learn. And so you don't come in with a pretense that you know everything. And when you do a job for many years, even if you just started, I mean, you could think, well, I'm a pretty good communicator. And someone says, well, that's really not how you're supposed to do it. Try this. Yeah. When someone gives you feedback or criticism, whatever word you want to use, you have to be an open heart and be willing to receive that. So that says a lot about your character.
Oh, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
How did God call you into broadcasting? How did you start?
Well, it's kind of crazy because I actually went to college to be a music major. I wanted to teach music, choir education. So I wanted to be a teacher. And I realized that when I was in college, I liked music. I loved music, but I didn't have a passion for music. So there's a definite difference between loving something and having a passion for something. And I realized I don't have an interest in learning how to do blank for 7 hours a day. There are people that were practicing the piano, practicing singing for 7-8 hours a day. And that was just not me. Mm-hmm. I really enjoyed it, but I wasn't that crazy about it. Mm-hmm. So after about a year and a half, I realized, I just don't think I want to do this. This just isn't my thing. Mm-hmm. I started taking some communication classes. I'd always been interested in radio and broadcasting. And I was the kid that I listened to American Top 40, Casey Kasem Countdown every week. I had to keep track of the charts. I'd go to the library every week and read the magazines as to which song went to where on the charts. I mean, that was me.
Is that why one of your son's names is Casey?
I get that question a lot. That's not true.
Oh, okay.
That's not it. But That's a valid question.
Okay.
No, he was named, actually, and this was funny because this is a picture of him when he was really young that you brought in.
So cute.
But yeah, he's actually named after a youth group leader that was on a mission trip with us.
Oh, okay.
But so I spent all this time in broadcasting. Mm-hmm. I always loved radio. Mm-hmm. So when I stepped out from doing the music thing, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to try this broadcasting thing and see what happens. And there was an ad in the newspaper.
Really?
For, hey, we're looking for someone on the weekends. And I think my mom pointed it out back when the newspaper used to have ads, or people even used to read a newspaper.
Wow.
And so I applied. They called me in for an interview. I had no idea what I was doing. I was kind of doing a, college radio thing, and that was it. And then just one thing led to another. And the crazy part about that story is that I was working from 4 a.m. to 10 a.m. on the weekends. So like nobody was listening. And that's why they had me there, because nobody would listen. But the guy that worked a couple of hours before that, it was like you'd pass the torch. Hey, I'll see you later. It's your turn. Okay, bye-bye. As he left, we just got talking every once in a while. And I ran into him at a Christian concert years ago. or a couple months after that.
Okay.
And I looked at him, I said, "Didn't I used to work with you?" And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, if there's ever a job, I'm doing full-time radio now, if there's ever an opening, let me know." And he's like, "Okay." And then he reached out to me and said, "We have an opening." And I said, "Okay." So that was like crazy that God appointed us to work at those times,
Mm-hmm.
to cross paths for that moment,
Mm-hmm.
even at 4 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
Next thing you know, he's introducing a concert at a Christian show, and the rest is history.
What year was that?
That would have been 1995.
That you started in Christian radio?
I was doing mainstream radio for 2.5 years before that.
Uh-huh.
And so we were both working at a mainstream station.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like I said, 4 a.m, we'd have these little conversations. 2 years later, I saw him at a concert, and he said, "Hey," that's when I said, "If you ever have a job, let me know." And he reached out because they had a job.
Do you think that younger people need to pick up a little bit of that fetch 'em, so to speak, of just reaching out, making connections, making those comments? Their world is so interconnected online, but don't underestimate just, throwing, and maybe that's what you do through LinkedIn or whatever. Hey, let me know if you ever have this opening there. Let me know. And you never know what God's going to do with that.
No, you don't.
And I believe that God put you at that concert at exactly that right time
For sure.
for such a time as this.
Yeah. I mean, it's a crazy story. I mean, I don't work with this guy anymore. He's moved on and he's doing other things. I don't even know what he's doing. But for that moment at that time, both of us happened to work at a mainstream station. And then 2 years later, we run into each other again. That's just like, that's God's timing. You cannot deny that.
Right.
That's crazy.
Well, then you landed in Christian radio for a while, and I know you had a couple of morning show co-hosts. And then you went to another station where you were put on the air with Brooke.
Yes. Yep. And so they teamed us together, and you work with somebody. You've worked with people. There's people that it's like, yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
And then there's people like, this is the connection. This is it. You can understand and feed off of each other. And so, we worked at another station together, and then a mainstream station called us and wanted us to do a family friendly type show on a mainstream station. We did not seek it out. In fact, at that time, there was another Christian station that wanted us to come and pursue to work for them. Well, that fell through. This one stayed open. Again, only God's timing. And we had an opportunity to kind of be salt and light in the midst of a dark world. And there's many stories I could tell of what happened in the office, where people used to call us like the Jesus twins.
As a put down.
But I can tell you, there were several times we'd hear this knock, and they like, "Hey, you got a second?" Close the door, and they would say, I know you guys would be willing to pray for me and throw up some good vibes. Here's what I got going on. And I loved every second of that. And there were people that were living some dark lives, but never treated us like, let me put it this way. When they had trouble, they knew where to go. So I loved that so much.
There was a mission aspect of being a believer in midst of unbelievers.
Yeah, because a lot of people will say, well, it's so great that you work at a Christian place where everybody's loving Jesus, and that is great. And some people, that's their thing. I have grown in my faith to be the one that's like, I'm willing to leave the 99 to go after the one. I kind of like the idea of searching for the lost coin.
Yeah.
And there was a point in my life, I don't think I was there. I think I was more like, I need to stay in the good, safe, comfortable bubble. Now I'm comfortable with people who are dropping language that I wouldn't use, that have different beliefs than maybe I have. I'm like, this is me. You be you. We'll find the common ground and let's build on that. And nobody has ever shut that down. And I think for a while I thought, well, can't associate with that kind of person.
Sure.
Don't want to be around that kind of. But I actually really like that. I like the invitation to just be Jesus.
So a lot of people that are listening to this podcast are in a similar situation. They might be a believer working in an industry around and not a lot of other believers. How do you do that? How do you pull that off? How do you live out your faith? Is it quietly? Is it, do you have a public Bible study in the middle of the office?
Well, it's funny you say that, because we started a prayer meeting in that mainstream radio station. We talked to the boss and he said, I want you to know, I can't go because of my position, but I encourage you, if you want to do that, go for it. So it was on Thursday mornings at about 9:30. We would gather in, and there were about 4 or 5 of us that were believers. We get together and pray. And then someone else is hired, and suddenly it gets bigger. And I think we got up to like 7 to 10 people would be showing up consistently on a Thursday morning.
Really?
And again, you'd get the knock at the door and somebody would come in and say, hey, if you could throw up some vibes for my family. And I'm like, I'm so grateful. That's how they feel like they can talk and be comfortable with it.
Right.
To not have to use the big words of prayer that seems scary to some people.
Right.
So to me, it was just like, this is what I'm going to do. If you want to show up, great. If you don't, that's fine too. Just know that we'll pray for you. And they always felt like there was an open door.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that if you are in a job in which you feel like you're the only person, light always wins over darkness. And I know it feels very hard to shine a light if you're constantly in darkness, but a light always wins. Sitting on a hill cannot be hidden. Mm-hmm. You are the light of the world. Let your light so shine before men. I mean, it's so evident. It's true, too. It's what a lighthouse is for, right?
I was recently on the podcast talking to Pastor Dave, and he was saying that as a coworker or a neighbor or a friend, you have an opportunity to preach the gospel, and that's the only gospel some people are ever going to hear. They're not going to hear the preacher if they're not in church.
Right.
They're not going to hear it if they're not listening to Christian radio, but you're the gospel. You're the representation of the gospel wherever you are.
Mm-hmm. And it's totally the truth. Mm-hmm. And I think that there was a time in my life where I thought, I've got to be that person. Mm-hmm. I got to tell everybody about church, which, yes, but like anything, if somebody comes in and all they talk about is blank, sometimes it comes to like, oh, here we go again. Mm-hmm. And I just think of the life of Jesus, and he was just like, something's wrong with you. Do you need to be made well? He never said, tell me about your past. He just came alongside people. And I'm like, that's the model. Just come alongside people.
Mm-hmm. Do you ever miss that? Or I know you're big into running. Mm-hmm. Do you sort of use that opportunity as, I would say, a witnessing opportunity?
Ceci, that's a great point. And yes, that's what I do. In fact, I have a lot of people that I run with that's their church. Mm-hmm. And I can't tell you how many times people have texted me or called me or said, hey, are you running tonight? 'Cause I'd love to run. And then the conversation becomes deeper, and they know where to go because they know what I believe. But I can't tell you how many times that has come up. And there was one time, a lot of times we go out to breakfast afterwards. We'll run a long miles. We go out to eat. And I just said once, I said, do you guys mind if I just pray for our food? And nobody turned it down. Didn't make a big scene out of it. Kept it very simple. Thanks for our health. Thanks for friends. Thanks for food. Thanks for sunshine today. In Jesus' name, amen. Mm-hmm. And now every time we go out to dinner or breakfast, they always go, Tommy, you want to pray? Every time. Mm-hmm. I don't have to say it. Mm-hmm. It's kind of expected. And I don't know how many of them actually go to church, listen to my show, listen to Christian radio. And, that's fine. Mm-hmm. That's fine. But they know where to go. And that's the thing that's crazy. The people knew this guy, Jesus, that's that healing guy. Mm-hmm. That's that guy that loves on people, who has compassion on people, and they always gravitated to him. Mm-hmm. It's beautiful.
Is it kind of nice in a way that not everybody listens to your show? That's a part of that part of your life?
Yes. Yeah. Because I've built incredible friendships with people that I would have never hand chosen. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And that's only God. Mm-hmm. Really good friends that I've made. And I lost one of my best friends a couple of years ago that him and I used to run together all the time. And it devastated me. And the reason it hurt so much was because this was a guy that, he's that type of person that has such a magnetic personality that it's just like, you know what? If you just made a couple of tweaks in your life,
Mm-hmm.
I think people would see Jesus more through you than you could even imagine.
Mm-hmm.
And God called him home incredibly unexpectedly in an accident. And so I didn't wrestle with God, but I was like, I thought this was the one that would have really continued to make a difference. And then months later, I was told that he really started finding his way.
Okay.
So it's hard sometimes to understand, like, God, what are you doing in the midst of all this? But yeah, I've made incredible friends through things that I never thought I'd do, including running, because that's not anything I ever used to do as a kid. I was very, I liked athletics and sports, played everything from baseball to football, but running wasn't my thing until about close to 20 years ago now.
Why did you decide to start running?
I was challenged to do a 5K. And someone said, if you do it, I'll do it with you. And so I'm like, you know what? I'll try it. And then it's become a part of me.
Do you like running at this point, or is it still challenging?
It's funny you asked that. I do enjoy it. I love the people I run with. But after you do something for a long time, there becomes like a line between, do I love this, or is this just a part of who I am? Do I still like it? If people, knit, for 40 years, 50 years, some people do this. And it's like, do you still like doing it? And then when they look back, they're like, yeah, I love this blanket that I made.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's how I look at it now.
Mm-hmm.
But last year at this time, I was training to do the Chicago Marathon.
Mm-hmm.
And I cannot say that I loved all the hard work that it took to do it. Hours I put in running. I think my biggest month I ran was like 180 miles in the month, which is a lot of time. But when I crossed the finish line and I got my goal, it made everything worth it. Mm-hmm. And I think that speaks volumes about living a Jesus-filled life. It takes hours of work, and sometimes you don't love it. Mm-hmm. But if you can look back and go, that was worth it, then yeah, then it's worth it.
Do you have time to do anything else for fun? So you're a radio broadcaster, you're running 180 miles a month, at least when
not
you're training.
Anymore, just for clarification.
Yeah.
But I love cleaning. I know that sounds crazy, but I really do. I love cleaning. I enjoy it.
I don't know that I knew that about you.
Yeah, I get up every morning. I'll make the bed. My wife's still sleeping, so I make my side. I like things. I like things tidy and in order. So
is your wife Patty? Is she a messy or a cleanie?
It depends. She's a deep cleaner.
That's what I am. But the inspiration has to strike.
And when she deep cleans, I mean, she will go to town.
Yes. I think I'm a little bit of a perfectionist. So I don't think that I can just do the surface cleaning because I know it's not getting the down deep. But the deep cleaning inspiration only happens about twice a year.
But when it happens, you're on fire.
Watch out.
See, I'm more of a surface. I want to walk into a room. I want my countertop to be clear.
Sure.
My wife, she'll scour the thing. I'm just like, let's, Windex the top of it and wipe it down. It looks good.
How many years have you been married?
This year will be 32. I know.
What's the secret sauce? Same thing as running. You just keep faithfully putting one foot in front of the other.
Yeah, actually, that's true. Yes. And grace and communication. Open communication is a big one. And when we go out on date nights, we will simply ask a question. Is there anything I'm doing that's annoying you, frustrating you, anything I can improve on? And sometimes, the truth is like it's an open field. It's
like that picture of the scroll coming out of the back pocket and then unrolling and hitting the floor.
It's like,
how much time do you have?
This has been a bad month. No, but there's times like, for instance, I would say as a point, I'm like, that desk that's in the bedroom that's got all the stuff on it that hasn't been used in like 5 months. I think there's any way we can kind of clear that off. And that's not easy to say. But when
Right.
there's permission,
Right.
or maybe it's deeper, like I feel like we're not spending enough time together.
Mm-hmm.
My needs aren't being met,
Yeah.
whatever that might be.
I
That's been
remember
big.
when you and I were doing the morning show together. I had met Dave during that time. And so then we became engaged. We're about to get married. And I remember you and Patty would go on these weekend getaways. And you're like, we're going to, talk about the annoying question. And I thought that sounds awful. I don't ever want to go away on a weekend just to talk about like what I'm doing that's annoying. Well, it happens. Trust me. You have to have those.
But it's like it's like sitting down across from your boss, right? It's not every time you're going to hear the bad stuff, but it's like, all right, let's talk about the good stuff. But is there anything I'm doing? And sometimes like, no, I think we're good.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
next.
true. And then you feel better because
you
people,
do.
You can't, like, if you're doing something that's annoying somebody and they don't know, they're not going to change. They're never going to know. So
it's true.
You got to put it out there. Write it on the scroll. Have a meeting.
On the scroll.
One of the pieces of feedback that we get working in Christian radio time and time again is people will be going through something and they'll hear a lyric in a song and it will light up their soul. Or they will listen to a song 100 times and then all of this sudden it'll change for them based on something going on in their life. What for you right now is a lyric that's lighting you up?
There's so many. But this new song that we're playing by Josh Baldwin called Made for More. And it's a lyric that says, why would I make a bed in my shame when a fountain of grace is running my way? I know I am yours. I was made for more. Why would I make a bed in my shame when a fountain of grace is running my way? I know I am yours, and I was made for more. And I think that so many times when you do get knocked down, and going back to running, I can tell you there were so many times last year training for a marathon. I'm like, this is horrible. What an awful run. How am I ever going to get my goal? And my friend would say, everybody has a bad day. You're going to have a bad run. Just put it behind you and keep moving forward. And he was never wrong. Like the next day, I'd run faster and go, well, how did that happen? Mm-hmm. And I think every day you're faced with a choice to say, I can either lament over the stupidity that I did last night or the bad decision I made on the road just driving, or you can say, yep, I've had one of those days, but I'm made for more. I'm not going to get stuck in this stuff. And I think it's very easy to get caught in it. And it's a choice to say, I'm not going to live even in the mistakes I made, whether that was 5 minutes ago, 5 days ago, 5 years ago. I was made for more. God can use all failures, all mistakes, when your test becomes the testimony. And I think that to me is a lyric right now that's really resonating.
As we wrap up this conversation, when I had a chance to talk with Brooke, I said, what would people be surprised to know about you? And I was so surprised by her answer because she said that she's a practical joker. And she talked about how one time she switched out the caffeinated coffee for decaf.
Yes, she did.
In the office.
Yes, she did.
I don't mean to put you on the spot, but what would people be surprised? People that maybe even tune in and listen to your show every Monday through Friday here on Joy 99 or on the app or have listened to you at other stations you've been a part of. What would people be surprised to know about you?
First thing that comes to my mind is my love for my affinity for 80s music. Back to the days of when I grew up listening to radio. It's just a special sweet spot in my heart. There's so many songs that resonate today and they'd be surprised. I'm like, wow, you like that music? I do. I often hear songs today and I'm like, wow, I guess I never realized they were singing that. But to me, that's it. I think music it's such a way to connect people. And same thing. I mean, whether it's about Jesus or not, if you like the same band, you're like, oh, I didn't know you liked them. Yeah, I like them too. Wow. Guess what? You've got a common point. and that's where a conversation can start. But I bet a lot of people would think, really? You like that? But I do.
What's your favorite band?
All time, it's a rock band.
All time
Favorite rock band is a band called Def Leppard.
Okay.
Rock band. And I've seen them in concert 3 times. It's my jam from being a kid. But you remember those old Time Life commercials that used to be on TV? It would be like 30 minutes of the best love songs of the 80s. And they'd show all these clips and things.
Yeah.
I was a sucker for that. I mean, I love that kind of stuff. I do. Is it surprising for you to hear that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so. I mean, I knew you liked 80s because sometimes on your social media, I'll see that you're at a 80s band. Like some of these guys are still touring, right?
They are. And then there was one guy I saw not long ago playing guitar on stage in a rock band. He's 75. And all my thought was, Grandpa, still lighting it up.
That's funny.
And it's different if you're on a bar stool, or in a church.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're on a stage in front of like 70,000 people, I'm like, you go, Grandpa.
Def Leppard.
Jam that thing out.
Thanks for being with us today and sharing your heart.
Well, thank you. And I, for one, am proud of your growth. I mean, to take a risk and a chance all those years ago, and God's still using you today in that way is pretty awesome.
Thanks. I wish I still had those overalls.
I do too, actually.
I don't know why I got rid of them. But.
Everything old becomes new again. That is a classic picture. Oh, my goodness. Wow. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to today's episode of This Lyric, That Truth. If you were inspired by today's conversation, feel free to share it with a friend and leave a 5-star review. If you're looking for more hope and encouragement in your music, download the Joy Media mobile app for free wherever you download your apps. I'm Ceci, and I so look forward to sharing more in-depth conversations with you as we talk about the lyrics that encourage us and shape our lives. Meet me back here next week for another episode of This Lyric, That Truth.